Hello, Nantucket, and welcome to the wellness portion of Nantucket Pulse programming, made possible by the Nantucket Cottage Hospital Community Health Initiative. I'm Natalie Simonero, your host, and I'm fortunate to be working with a talented and dynamic team of individuals who are committed to making sure that Nantucket Pulse Wellness Program continues to highlight essential resources to help us balance our new way of living, including taking care of ourselves and each other, and connecting to those who can help us during this unprecedented time. Joining me this week is Bonnie Fitzgibbon, PhD, a licensed mental health counselor and psychologist in private practice here on Nantucket since 1987. As a psychotherapist, Bonnie sees individuals, couples, adolescents, and elders in all matters pertaining to aging as a particular stage of life. The orientation of her work is primarily based in humanistic existential psychology, and she works with clients from a depth perspective, endeavoring to treat not only symptoms, but also working to address underlying root issues that may be involved. One thing you should know is that Bonnie is also a resident counselor for palliative and supportive care at Nantucket Cottage Hospital since 2013. Her work there focuses on all levels of treatment, including patients living with terminal and/or debilitating illness and all issues concerning their well-being. Counseling patients relative to issues of death and dying, trauma, bereavement, and caregiver needs. So I find it so important that with her source of experience, she can be so helpful to us right now. And today is a special treat, as I will be talking with Bonnie live. So fingers crossed that technology is kind to us and this goes well as planned. I've known her for over 20 years, and I'm so very pleased to present Bonnie Fitzgibbon. Hi, Bonnie, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. That was quite an introduction.
Well, you've had quite some experience. I've known you for a long time, and so it really is my pleasure to be talking with you today. And so thank you so much for that.
Absolutely.
Bonnie, if it's good with you, I do have some questions that I'd love to start off with. Is that good with you?
Go.
All right. So the first question that I have, Bonnie, is in this new world of us living with COVID-19, can you talk about what you see as important and meaningful issues for people to contemplate, and what you see as particular stressors at this time?
Yes, I can, and I will. That is a huge question, of course. And I've been giving that question a lot of thought, not just personally, but with all my clients who are coming up against this. So needless to say, this is an extraordinary time in our lives, in our world, and in our history as human beings. This pandemic has just catapulted us into the unknown. And human beings, we're very future-centered most of the time. So I think that from my perspective, we're all in what I would call a psychosocial, a psychocultural, if you will, transformation right now. And we're being asked to consider so many things that we've never, ever, come up against before in our lives. We are all very much, whether we're conscious of it or not, in a state of deep vulnerability, I believe. And that throws us into what? It throws us into, I think, firstly, a place of survival. So, survival, a very, very big, hard place to be often. And as a psychologist, I think that, and just as a human being, I think the first place that can take us is not only inside ourselves, but also it takes us to our families, to our loved ones. You know, we get very protective, like animals, and we want to, that's where we go. We just want to protect, right? And, but I also think that can be very exhausting. It's very anxiety producing. It can create a lot of anger and absolutely creates a lot of fear.
Yeah.
So again, here we are in the unknown, right? And we're all looking at and wondering who's the virus going to touch next, right? Is it going to be a friend, a family member, a neighbor, a coworker? We're all, whether we're consciously thinking this every day, we're all very much aware of it. You know, we have new antenna around this, and it's stressful. And then there's, you know, the everyday things about when are we going to get back to work for a lot of people. Tremendous financial worries at this time as well. And families are being asked to live together in ways that they probably never have before. You know, kids are home from school all the time. It's very, in a relational way, this has really put us into a new world. And all of these stressors create a lot of instability. So I see us, and I hear this with my clients, and I feel it, of course, myself, that we're out of balance in a way right now, because we're used to predictability, pretty much. You know, we've had that good fortune in our world, in our country especially. So how do we manage this instability? Lots of ways to do it, but really, I think the most difficult thing that is upon us with instability, but the thing that's needed the most, is to learn to live in the moment. And living in the present is not an easy thing. It sounds easy, but it's not always easy. So we have to, however, create, you know, I think as human creatures, we gravitate towards, you know, finding stability, right? Whatever it is, you know, we have our little routines, we get up in the morning, we have our coffee, whatever it is that makes us feel, you know, okay, we're here, it's solid, all of that. And, but I also think there are new things that people are being asked to look at, you know, because sometimes just the coffee in the morning or the particular lunch you're going to have that you have every Friday and Wednesday doesn't do the trick. So meditation is something I always recommend to people. I think getting outside, which we have such good fortune here on Nantucket that we can do that. Movement really, really helps our psyche and our bodies. And I think basically anything that gives us the experience of focus. So, you know, I say to people, okay, is there anything that you've thought about doing all your life or the last 10 years or 20 years that you haven't done yet? And, you know, I have some clients, for instance, I have one who's just started to take up piano. I have another person who is now, you know, the going through boxes, doing a whole genealogy write up on her family of origin. And people are sort of going, well, you know, I have this time, I have this space, I need to do something. So usually when we sit with ourselves, I think we can find things, you know, things we've thought about, but just never taken the time to do. So I think in that way, this time can be very meaningful. Okay, or it's one of the ways, because we can get in touch with ourselves in a new way. And it doesn't all have to be just sitting and waiting, you know, sort of white knuckling through this time. You know, people say to me, when is it going to get back to normal? I want life to get back to the way it was. And, you know, of course, I have no answers for that, but I just try to help them look at what can they do now, right? To keep themselves sort of on the ground without going into overload. So that's one of the things that's very important for people, I think, at this time.
So you think, you know, what I'm hearing is in those times when we're maybe feeling very uncertain and all of the different moving parts are kind of up in the air, and if we're feeling particularly out of control, something
Right.
that would be helpful is to choose something, maybe on whether it's a lifelong dream that we've always had or just a small project where we can stay present in the moment, focus on what's going on now, whether it's cleaning out a closet, working in our
Right.
yards, taking a walk,
Right.
learning to play piano,
Right.
taking up voice lessons. I'm thinking about that.
Right. Right. Right.
So anything
Great.
like that, those are sort of in the present moment action things that we can do that are also good for us at the same time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the other thing I think, at a time like this, when we're suffering, which we are all suffering on some level, conscious or not, uh, priorities tend to come to light, right? And so uh, we tend to uh, it just comes up for us, what things we haven't attended to, not just in a creative way, but maybe some difficult things, right? Difficult relationship things, difficult things that we've been, sort of putting aside for ourselves, right? Because mortality is upon us, and that is huge. Okay, in America, at least it's my opinion that mortality doesn't get a lot of press here, right? It's go go go, and we're a very youthful culture. In our narrative is very youthful in the United States, and mortality. It's like, oh my God, anything could happen at any moment, right? And that is what's happening with this COVID. It's you're healthy one day, and the next day you're not, and so mortality is a great mover, I believe. The awareness of mortality, shall I say, is a great mover for people. It's, people go, oh my God, I'm 50, I'm 60, I'm 40, I'm 70, and I could get sick tomorrow, or I could die, hopefully not, but, I could die tomorrow. What is that thing that I'm still waiting to do? So I think it's a very rich, really, even though it's a time of suffering, I think psychologically, this is a very rich time for human beings, because it just steps us back into ourselves in such a deep way. And, to think and to become aware, life is, it is a gift, and it is um, unpredictable. And Nantucket's been very lucky, of course, up to this point, and hopefully will stay that way. But all we have to do, we know this, we look at the news, we see what's happening in any country around the world, we see pictures, certainly things, Italy was one of the first places to be, hit so hard. And so that kind of awareness too, that's, I think, really, what do I want to say? Well, really come up for our attention is to consider the world, and to consider human beings in the world, and to consider that we're all in this together. So, I think it's a very, obviously a very human crisis. And because of that, I think it can make us, believe it or not, better human beings.
Well, I was going to actually, to say that what I'm hearing from you, and I think we share this sentiment, is that yes, I mean, there are very real challenges and sadness and despair and all of those things that come with this, in uncertainty. And at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, it also can be a time of getting to know yourself again, getting to know your family, your loved ones, learning something about yourself. It can be a time, should we choose to have something positive happen, because quite honestly, I mean, for me, if I don't look at it that way, the despair could just be too much. I have to look at it as in a way that, well, we've got to find something positive, whether it's, gosh, look at how much time I'm spending at home with my loved ones, and look at how much time I'm, getting to do X, Y, or Z. And so I feel like those are really important things to keep a grasp on. And something that you had mentioned a short bit ago sort of brings me to another question that I have for you, which is your work with PASCON, with palliative care.
Right.
And I have a question for you about that. If you're willing to share, I'm interested, in your work with PASCON, how it's influenced your life personally, how it's influenced your life professionally, and particularly with what's going on right now. I can imagine that a lot of people's feathers are extra ruffled. There's a lot of extra vulnerability going on right now. So I'm super interested on your work in that level as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that question. Yeah, clearly PASCON is, regardless of the pandemic, it's an active place with that is all about the unknown. Death and dying is always, it's always in the mix, of course. So PASCON, well, I can say, and I will say, that being part of that team and working with PASCON, when I first started 7 years ago, it was hospice and palliative care.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's palliative and supportive care, so we can take on people who don't have terminal illness. But in any event, we are always working, in the trenches with what's happening, for instance, right now, with the unknown, with fear, with anxiety, issues of mortality, of course. That's the main issue here for people in palliative care. And personally and professionally, it's been the greatest teaching piece of my life to be with this organization and do this work. But that said, it has also, ironically, prepared me in some way for this pandemic, because I'm used to, I'm used to thinking about this. I'm used to thinking about, life is here and not here in the moment. So it's been very instructive for me. I think that's your question. How has it influenced me? It has helped me. There's no question. And it has also helped me, I believe, to have some insight into what people, are going through during this time. Because I'm working so much, with people who are bereaved and ill, dying, on all levels. So yes, it's been, Natalie, it's a major, major piece in my work. In general, even in my psychotherapy in my private practice, because, we're all just here for a time. And we don't know, as one of my teachers said to me, some of us have long candles that are long flames on our candles, and some of us have short flames on our candles, and everything in between. And it's just, again, it always comes back to the unknown, So palliative, working there with PASCON is really very much about that for all of us who work there. And but it can be a really, I know this may sound strange, but it can be a very beautiful place to experience,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because
Can you talk about that a little bit more in terms of maybe I don't know if advice, but some advice or something about that experience, about the beauty of human beings at their vulnerable.
Yes, right.
Working with them, and what that experience is like, and maybe, if it's possible, do you have any advice or based on your working with people through PASCON of anyone watching today, and if they're all experiencing their own level of grief, whether it's a sick person in their family, whether it's grief of not being able to work, whether it's grief of, oh my gosh, I can't go to the grocery store because I'm afraid. There's grief happening. And so I'm wondering if you can talk about that a little bit.
Well, yes, I think that, I think we just have to accept it. I mean, there's no magic thing here,
Yeah.
there's no there's no how-to script on how to avoid it or get around it. Really, I think we have to learn to accept it, and accept that it really is it's a part of life, and it always has been. You see, it's always been there. It's just that it hasn't been in our face, the way it is now. I mean, it's front and center for all of us every day. So I would say to people, just know that this is a part of life. This is not some aberration. I mean, the pandemic, the virus is an aberration, but the awareness of death, the awareness of ourselves as vulnerable human beings, that's life. That's always a given. We avoid it, we get distracted. Life can take us away from those things. So I just say to people, don't panic, right?
Yeah.
This is a part of living, and we're being asked right now to just take this in. I mean, we can't be alive really in a full way unless we have some awareness of our mortality, and because of that, and if we have that, if we can gain that perspective, I think it really opens us up to choose more wisely for ourselves in life, to love, with big hearts. And the other piece here, which is huge, huge, and it's the big word for me, is compassion. So I think that this time, this is, if I could, put it in big letters, on billboards, right? I would just put that word out, compassion, because this is what we're being asked to feel and to take in, not just for ourselves and our families and our, nuclear tribe, but really for the world. And compassion is, it makes the earth a better place on every level. And it makes us better human beings. So, I say to people, don't be afraid. As much as you can, hold it. We're supposed to have compassion. We have the ability to have compassion. We just have to settle into it and not be so scared of it. Doesn't mean we're going to be next. It doesn't mean our time is going to end tomorrow. But I think that is really the most valuable, if I had to say, most valuable growing piece.
Is to learn to have compassion.
That's right. And to come, to come out of this pandemic with compassion.
Well, and I know from speaking with you too, that compassion for other people and first for yourself. Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I've shared with you before, my father, who was my greatest inspiration in many ways. I mean, I have a wonderful family, and he was inspiration to me in many ways. He always used to say to me before he passed, he was looking at his own mortality, and we found such a beautiful connection in being honest with each other,
right,
as he did with all of the members of my family. But he used to say to me, the one thing I've learned in facing what his challenge was that the next time I think, oh, I'll just do that next time. Don't just do it next time.
Right. Don't wait.
Yeah.
Don't wait. And that's absolutely. And I think that's a teaching piece here for people. Don't wait. If new priorities are coming up, and I think that they are for many, many people, again, as I said, some of them difficult and some of them very exciting, right? Don't wait. Don't sit on it. Okay. And I think that's, sort of opening up for people. And, the other thing I say to people is gratitude. And I think that's really important, to appreciate what you have and be grateful for it. Okay. Be grateful that, you and I, we can wake up, we're waking up today and we're healthy. Right.
Yeah. And
And
with technology, we're actually connecting.
exactly, we're connected. And, for Nantucketers, we live in this beautiful place. Okay. We can go outside. We can walk. We can get on a beach, uh, there's still enough food, it may not be what everybody's used to, but we're so lucky here. And so don't be afraid to be grateful. And I say to people, and not in a way that where somebody says, oh, I feel special, because, we're not special, but we just happen to be, I think at this moment anyway, on Nantucket, in a good place to be during this, during this crisis, at least for the moment.
I agree.
So appreciate that. Appreciate that. And it's interesting, as I've in these weeks now it's been a couple of months, and when I go out for walks, which I do try to every day, and I walk in the woods, or, it's always quiet, but there are people, strangers, and everybody is so friendly. They just, from 6 feet away, 8 feet away, 10 feet away, they wave, they say hello, how are you doing? It's, I think that's a really, I see that more. I don't know if you have in these last couple of months, people are sort of, reaching out in those ways. Yeah.
I have. It's one of my favorite things to do is, if I'm on a walk, or even if I get in my car and I might just drive down to the Surfside parking lot just to stare at the water. And if there's other people in the parking lot the same, and we're all waving, I don't know who they are. But I mean, as you know, because I've known you a lot, I'll talk to anyone who will talk to me. So there's something so connective about just going out and waving to someone and showing kindness to someone. And my hope, and I've talked to you about this, is that part of what's going on right now with this pandemic will stick. Meaning the fact that we're being extra nice to each other and extra courteous, it's because of a crisis. But wouldn't it be great if we could have that part stick?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yes. And that's my hope and my, deepest wish, that we have a greater appreciation of each other, and of our need for each other too, and I think that's a big thing. I'm doing, as most people are, a lot of people anyway, they work remotely. And so you can't go up and touch, you're not, for me, I'm not sitting in a room with clients at this time. And people are missing that, and really, I think it's going to get a little bit harder too, but, people are really missing that kind of, face-to-face feeling.
And the physical connection.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So hopefully it will make us, just again, more grateful, more appreciative.
When we are allowed to, when we can do that.
When we can do that. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I
think it's a beautiful sentiment. And I hear what you're saying, and everything so rings true, from where we started with sort of my first question in terms of what's up with people right now, and fear and vulnerability and grieving, to your work with Pascon, to how it's inspired and influenced you, and the gifts that you've received from working with people, and the things that you've learned from working with people. Those are all such important components right now of what's going on. And so I'm wondering, in sort of continuing our time together, if there's something else or anything that you kind of have just fresh on your mind that you want to share with us, that you might think, as people watching right now could say, like, hey, I'd love to hear this from Bonnie. It's something just organic and natural without thinking about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what comes up for me right now, and what is on my mind on a daily basis, is, again, and I know I spoke to this earlier, is how to live in the now and how to live in the moment. And I think that is our refuge right now. I think that is our resting spot. And that's what I come to, with people, if I'm asked, and you're asking me now, what would I say? What can I say? And what's up for me in the moment? It's how to do that. The now, the moment, we need it so badly to get through this time. Yesterday, when I was talking to one of my clients, and I said, "So how are you doing today?" And he said, "Well, I'm doing okay." He said something to the effect of, "I think I'm learning to be in the moment a little bit more. I'm not used to it. I don't know. It's kind of strange, but I think I'm learning about that, you know." And I said, "That is great, right?" And I think really, I know I'm repeating this, but I think for all of us, that's what I would say, you know, and ending with your question, perhaps, you know, go to the moment as much as you can, because that's where you're going to find some rest and some relief from anxiety, hopefully, some relief from the fear and the terror. You know, just grab the moments. You know, they're going to come and go, but just take them, okay? They may not stay. We may not be able to stay in the present moment all day long, every day, and that's all right. But just grab them, take them. They're little nuggets of refuge, you know.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome, Natalie.
It's been a treat to talk with you. And, you know, I say this from my heart. I really feel like you are a special gift to our island community. There's so many of our local health professionals, you know, whether it's someone who is trained like you are, to someone who might be a nutritionalist, but you're such a special gift to us, and we live in such a special, close-knit community. So your wisdom, your sense of compassion, it never ever ceases to impress me. It never ceases to inspire me. And I really want to thank you for your willingness to be in front of a camera and spending time with me to share your words of advice and your pearls of wisdom, because I'm so grateful for it. And I know that if even one person can get something from what you've said today, and I'm imagining it's going to be more than that, it's been my great honor to talk with you. So I thank you really so much.
Thank you, Natalie. Great.
It's fun.
Okay.
I appreciate it. Nantucket. To watch this episode or learn more about Bonnie and her work anytime, look for it in the Nantucket Pulse Wellness Series playlist on nctv18.org. So we have been featuring at the end of each episode local island groups, giving rounds of applause to healthcare workers on Nantucket and around the world. So if your team is meeting on Zoom or Google Hangouts, please do record yourselves saying who you are and give a shout out and a round of applause to our frontline heroes. There are so many different faces, and then send them to us at info@nctv18.org. We are going to continue with our series aimed at keeping everyone connected and to maintaining a healthy balance under the guidance of our cherished local health professionals. I hope you have found something in today's episode that will help you. And this week in closing, I'd like to share with you some wise words from Shep Hyken. Recognize that every interaction you have is an opportunity to make a positive impact on others. So in that spirit, I'd like to give a shout out to all of you who continue to stock the shelves at our local markets for us and our pets, make curbside deliveries, and have the patience to fulfill our special call-in orders. I can't impress upon you enough how much you make a real difference in our lives. So that's all for now. I'm Natalie Simonero, your host of the wellness portion of Nantucket Pulse. I'll be back next week, and until then, please do take good care of yourselves and each other.
We want to thank all the essential workers and medical professionals
and first responders and town employees and stop and shop workers and
the teachers who are working remotely, people who are all doing what they can to save us while we do what we can by staying inside.
We are so very appreciative, and we'd like to clap for you. Thank you for everything you're doing for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.